Let's see. I wish the comments would stay on the screen a little longer for me. The lighting was better last week. But hopefully the sound is better this week. Can you hear me? I hope. Can you hear me? Okay, so if there were one person in here, maybe you went away from the computer. Does this work? Oh. Hello, can you hear me? Somebody tell me. Is the microphone working? Is the microphone working? Can you hear me? Okay, good. I had trouble last week. My adapter was faulty, and then I used a Rode mic connected to my phone, and that didn't do very well. So I'm back to my little body mic, and hopefully that's better. Hopefully I am louder than the birds. The birds are pretty loud. So, okay, that is good. I just wanted to check in early and make sure that was working. That is important. Trying to improve this. Do you like the flowers behind me? I'm trying a different place in the yard today with lovely flowers and bad lighting. I got myself a ring light, but I did not bring that out here because I assume I need to plug that in. But I'm trying to stay close to the house, so I have my Wi-Fi, and the picture looks better actually today. Last week it looked kind of poor quality. 10 people, all right. And it is about 2.5 minutes until 5. So we'll just, be on time. I don't like to start early. I've gotten into live streams where they start early and I'm like, am I late? But no, they just started early. So we'll wait. Oh no, wait, 2 minutes? Wait, I can't even tell what time it is there. No, that's wrong. That's not counting down, that's counting up. But I got in here about 4 or 5 minutes before 5, so we've got a minute or two before 5 o'clock. I didn't wear a watch today. I wore a watch last week so I could tell time. But got my book, and I've got different, well, I'm gonna try this. I've never used this thing. I bought it, I never used it. A little, I'm blanking. Yes, cigarette holder. I thought, that's fancy. I never used it. I'm gonna hold it funny, so, smoke that in my spare time. I figured that will keep it farther away from the, well, actually it kind of gets closer to the book, unless I go this way. Well, we'll see. But we will start without it first and just read. So, all right, 13 people so far. Exciting. I wish I could see a list of who's here. I can't. I mean, maybe if I click on something, but I don't know. I'm new to this. So, I don't know who's here. It's all a mystery. But thanks for coming for story time. Hope you liked the nun story, because we're going to do chapter 2 today. I might read something different next week, just to mix it up. I have a couple other things to read. But I like the nun story. Let's see here. Okay. I suppose we could get started. So hello to the 16 people in here. Now, time to get in the Audrey mood. And we'll start reading, and then I'll start trying to smoke my cigarette in my lovely little holder in a minute or two. Let me just get into the flow here. So, welcome to my, it's not my garden. Welcome to my place. And here we go. Okay. Her entrance into the community was a break with the past, as clean as amputation. The first day was the only one she could recollect in entirety afterwards. All the others telescoped into one 6-month-long sunrise to dark struggle to synthesize in her mind the mass of minutiae on which convent conduct was based and to teach her body to behave accordingly. The day began with a sound she had never expected to hear inside this house of silence. An electric alarm that shrilled simultaneously in every corridor of the big dormitories where 200 nuns slept in semi-partitioned cells. The bell tore her from sleep with shock. She sprang from her straw sack as if the current of electricity had passed through it and had stood her up in the 4:30 dark like a stiff electrocuted thing that would fall the moment the vibrations ceased. Instantly, lights were flashed on above the honeycombs of cells, and she saw through the gap of her curtain, the silhouette of a night-gowned nun on the grey curtain opposite, flung bolt upright from sleep like herself. From a distance, the voice of the senior nun called out, "Praised be to Jesus Christ," so promptly after the alarm and the lights that you could believe all three were connected to the same switch. Well, I wouldn't want to be woken up like that. All right, let's see. Well, that's interesting. Okay. So nun-like. The sound of 200 bodies dropping to their knees was the clue to what to do next. A few sighs could be heard as the knees went down on the oak floor. Then another voice began the Hail Marys. Oh, I got one. Hello. I'm trying to catch as many messages as I can. Nice to see you too. How do you like my cigarette holder? Oh dear. Gabrielle tried to think the prayers until her voice would come back, but she could only think of the way she would be awakened for the rest of her life. She looked down years of dark dawns and knew that her nerves would never learn to accept without a quiver the shattering discipline of that electric bell. Gotta suck a little harder on that, I guess. Even before she had taken a step inside the community, she had experienced more discipline than she had ever dreamed existed. The wooden planks under her straw sack had disciplined her bones all night, and the straw sack itself, stuffed tightly and economically with old pulverized straw, had been as a bed of sand that gave the muscles no ease. The sheets of unbleached serge were the harsh equivalent of a hair shirt, and the morning bell had stripped away the luxury of a slow natural awakening. Not sure I like that. I think I might give up on that right now. Just, that is rough. Okay. She listened incredulously to the Aves rising up from all the cells except hers. There was a clear note of gladness in the salutation to the Virgin, a sort of breathlessness when the nuns chanted, full of grace. As for a grace discovered that morning for the first time by all 200 of them. How could they pray so perfectly after being shocked from sleep? How could they sound so happy after a night on these sacks of straw? She followed the sounds again, stood up and stripped her bed. She folded the covers as the mistress of postulants had demonstrated in 3 exact folds each, then hung them over the chair, careful to see that no edge touched the floor, an imperfection that would be. It calmed her to have things to do with her hands. Then she heard the sisters dressing, starchy rustles from the nuns who were putting on the stiff white, gimps? Not sure. Clinks of keys as leather belts were buckled on, and the click of wooden beads as rosaries were lifted from tables and hung from belts. She made an effort to ignore these involuntary private sounds as, during the night, she had tried to ignore the snores and muted cries of nightmares. Sisters already dressed were gliding past a grey curtain, reminding her that if she were late for chapel, she would have to do that appalling penance of prostrating herself on the floor before the prie-dieu of the Mother General. Meditations, prime, and tierce. The admittance ceremony, then Mass. She rehearsed her debut. Breakfast afterwards in the huge refectory, where she must remember the repertoire of exact small gestures which the mistress had run through just once. The upraised hand with waggling index to ask for water, the cutting motion of the back of one hand against the palm of the other to tell the server that bread was wanted, the down-hooked middle and index fingers to say, "Fork, please," the two humble taps on the breast to say, "Excuse me." There were scores of such things to keep in mind. You would have to live, she thought, at the maximum effort of awareness every waking moment until repetition would perfect the pantomime. She pinned her veil over her hair and felt the edges to make sure it was not askew. It was strange to be in a world without mirrors. Stranger still to think of the many women around her who had not seen themselves for years, save in the photographs they were permitted to have taken for their families at time of vesture, vowing, and jubilees. She pulled her curtain and stepped out into the corridor. Most of the sisters in her wing were already gone. The thin cotton hangings that gave them the only privacy they had, the half-privacy of being heard but not seen, were left drawn back from their cells. It was difficult to lower your eyes as you hurried past the bleakness, and quite impossible to realize that women with such varied taste and backgrounds inhabited those similar cells without leaving in any one of them some trace of the individuality. Sounds nice. Every member of the community, including the superior general, was housed here regardless of age, rank, or function. Choir nuns, artists, doctors of medicine and the humanities, cooks, laundresses, shoemaker nuns, and the peasant sisters who worked truck gardens lived in those box-like cells, each one identical in form and content, in arrangement of bed, table, and chair, and thrice-folded coverlets over each chair. Incredibly, every nun had her cell changed every year to prevent her from becoming attached to its location. In the main corridor that led to the chapel, Gabrielle stepped quickly into the file of nuns and novices walking along close to the walls. Her heart missed a beat. She had almost forgotten that practice of humility which, when she had heard about it from the mistress of postulants, why is that still smoking? Had impressed her. Like the matter of the protected finger on the breviary page, the humble effacing of self along the edges of any wide thoroughfare was something she had lived with but never seen in training days at the convent hospital. She understood now that this habit of the nuns was what gave the great white hallways their look of peace and quiet, even as here in the mother house there was the sense of very few people about. Let's see. Smoking for you who like it. It's the only time of the week I smoke. And I'm sorry, I don't have real cigarettes yet. My boyfriend's still out of town. Couldn't steal them from him, but maybe next week, so we'll try. A line of sisters moved flat as shadows along the opposite wall. A timid postulant, caped and short-skirted like herself, walked between two nuns and was reduced by the handsome regalia to a stunted shape that was all legs and anxiety. That's how I looked, Gabrielle thought. A wave of self-pity swept over her as she entered the chapel. She genuflected to the altar, then turned halfway round to make to the superior general the reverence she had practiced in the dark of her cell. It had seemed easy then, all alone, but now in the august presence of the one who must be recognized as the Christ in the community, She felt like a goose girl bowing before a queen. Her body broke like a stick at the waist, and her arms fell straight down with her bow, then crossed so her flattened palms covered her shaky knees. She blushed for her awkwardness and backed away. The lanes of kneeling nuns, which had limits when she had first looked down them from the guest section, were now an endless maze, frightening to pick your way through, with swirls of skirts covering the floor, and very little space left for laggards to walk in. When she reached her place far down in the front, she sank to her knees with the suddenness of complete exhaustion, as if she had been years on the way. Getting on my black pants. The morning prayer lasted 15 minutes. The 200 voices were keyed low for it, like the grey light coming through the Gothic windows from a world still fast asleep. Then the postulants were led apart for the meditation. They looked at each other furtively when they were in the study hall. Gabrielle saw one of the Irish girls tying her shoelaces, and another with her veil pinned so low it covered her eyebrows and gave her an aboriginal look. "Now, my sisters," said Sister Margarita, "we will meditate on a line I shall read from today's epistle. We will have 30 minutes to take these inspired words into our minds and to think profoundly on what they mean." She opened her missal and read, "If I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I am become a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal." Gabrielle wondered uncharitably if anyone in the room could meditate on anything else except the straw sacks, the mirrorless dressing, and the bow to the superior general, which were already behind them, and of the hazards which still lay ahead, the admittance ceremony, the refectory, and its manual vocabulary, and all the other unfamiliar activities of this first day, which she could scarcely believe was not yet 1 hour old. Oh, see where exactly we are? "And have not charity," said the mistress, picking up their thoughts and leading them to the crux of the matter. Gabrielle knew the epistle. She said it silently through to the line that used to make her sad in her youth. "When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child." She had never been a child. Her 3 brothers had been children, but she had been the replacement for the mother who had died so early that only she could remember her clearly. And her father, of course, who remembered so clearly and constantly that he could never bring himself to take another wife, although all the uncles and aunts tried to persuade him to do so. "But when I became a man, I put away the things of a child." Gabrielle put away the things she had never had and tried to think about charity. Presently, Sister Margarita snapped her metal cricket. 1 click stood them up, 2 clicks moved them into processional order. Gabrielle moved to the place that would ever be hers, 3rd in line of 40 postulants. She was 3rd oldest in the group because she had been 3rd to register on that day, less than a week ago, when the order had opened its doors to new entrants. From that moment, her chronological age had ceased, and the only age she would henceforth have, her age in the religious life, had started. The 2 girls ahead of her were only a few minutes older, and the 37 behind her were all her juniors, although 2 or 3 whose aristocratic faces she had remarked most certainly had been born in the decade before her. It struck her that there was something quite bold and magnificent in the way age was discarded in the religious life. Man's time meant nothing here, only the time that was given to God, as was every minute of convent time counted. Nobody else in the whole congregation was your exact age. You stood alone in this separated world that had its own time spiral, a haughty hierarchy that gave you privileges for your seniority, but not a single contemporary. "Now you know your places in chapel, I shall not lead you," said Sister Margarita, "but after tierce you will wait." She nodded to the number 1 postulant. "I shall take you to the chapel hall for the admittance ceremony." They had practiced for this and knew exactly what they had to do. This would be the first time they would meet the whole community face to face. "One last reminder," said Sister Margarita. "Remember, in chapel you are not to join in the psalmodizing. You will follow the office with your eyes only and keep them on your books. For the first 3 weeks you will listen. Then, when your ears have caught the precise tonalities of the hours, you may sing with your sisters." She started the procession forward with a nod. The 200 sisters were exactly as they had been left a half-hour before, kneeling, motionless, eyes on the altar, folded down in the humblest position that the human can assume. They seemed to be shapes of strength that had no likeness on earth among living things. It was frightening to be among them, like being lost in mountains. The superior rapped twice with her gavel to begin the Deus in adjutorium. You can tell I'm not Catholic. The clear voice of the hebdomadary seemed like a cry from Gabriel's own heart. "O God, incline unto my aid." The response from the other side of the chapel was the answer to that cry and its reinforcement. "O Lord, make haste to help me." Then the sisters began to sing the first hour. Eyes on the pages of her little office, Gabrielle followed the Latin easily through psalms and canticles. She had never heard anything more beautiful than those two treble choirs passing pure Gregorian back and forth as the first light of day slanted down from chapel windows. Her fingers trembled as they turned the pages. Now and again her eyes went back to lines of special beauty. "Emmanuel, he shall eat butter and honey. Thou didst descend like rain upon a fleece." The 100 voices in each opposing choir sang as from a single throat, alternating from side to side without missing a beat, the whole contained within the bounds of just 2 notes pitched high and piercingly sweet. Plain song was her passion. She had always hoped to go to Solemns one day to hear the Benedictine monks chant this most ancient music of the church. But now she thought she was hearing it in her own house, perhaps a few octaves higher, but with the same pure effect of unison and cadence. "Deo gratias," sang the choir on her side. "Grace is spread abroad on thy lips," replied the other. Even the glimpse of the cantatrice. I looked this up, and it's either like cantatrice or cantatrice. I'm not really sure. Walking ceaselessly up and down the aisles of the choir, nuns could not dismay her. From the corner of her eye, she watched this famed Gregorian scholar pause near a novice to listen to her breath control, or perhaps to some forbidden excess of feeling that escaped from the young throat. The cantatrice did not look at the novice. She turned her head slightly towards the voice she was inspecting and let her coif. Actually, not sure how to pronounce that. Coif? Anybody? Capture sound like a shell. I tried to skim through the chapter and look for words I didn't know how to pronounce. Apparently, I missed some. The devotions ended, waiting in the cloister gardens until the community would be assembled in the chapter hall. Gabrielle listened in vain for sounds of life in the streets beyond the vine-covered walls. It was astonishing how many things nuns had to do before anyone else in the world was awake. She thought of them now gathering for this extra ritual of welcoming postulants, and of the superior general whose slightest word, even unspoken wish if a sister could guess it, was law in this house called hers. When she had had her audience with the Reverend Mother Emmanuel to tell the reasons why she wished to enter the convent, she had not had the slightest idea of the mountains that separated her from the stately woman who had sat barely an arm's reach away from her across a desk, watching her waving hands and listening intently to her words. There had been some questions, but she could not now remember the voice. There had been a smile, but she could not now remember the face. Let's do another one. And my fun lighter, I like it. It's not vintage at all, but it's cool. Come on. The doors of the chapter hall were opened by 2 novices. The postulants entered, made the hand-crossing bow to the woman on a throne-like chair under an immense crucifix at the far end of the hall, then prostrated themselves flat on the floor, leaning on their elbows with faces buried in their hands. The glimpse she had had of the gaunt Gothic faces of the superior general recalled the words of the mistress of postulants. The Reverend Mother Emmanuel, Sister Margarita, had said, is neither man nor woman, she is the Christ. Among us, the Christ among us, and as such she is loved by us. the Christ among us. Gabrielle waited for the voice. What do you ask, my children? It was not the voice that had spoken to her that day across the desk. It seemed to come from a great distance now, and it sounded lonely. To be admitted into the congregation, the postulants said into their hands. Arise in the name of God. They rose to their knees. The Superior General was standing. She was tall and spare. Her plain face had a carved simplicity like an early Flemish primitive, but when she smiled there was a sudden beauty cast over the countenance that made you catch your breath. Every one of us, said the Reverend Mother, has prayed that you would have the strength to join us. She nodded right and left to the assembled nuns, who in turn nodded as one to the postulants. Now that you are part of our blessed congregation, do not reject the graces that will come to you, my children. Cooperate with those graces, for you will need all the strength that they will bring. Gabrielle looked at the face of goodness with dark, glowing eyes and wondered how she had missed that saintliness the first time. Gently the Reverend Mother warned of the difficulties that lay ahead. It is not easy to be a nun, she said. It is a life of sacrifice and self-abnegation. It is a life against nature. A life against nature. The words startled Gabrielle into remembering her father, who had said exactly the same thing. A life against nature, the Superior General repeated without any inflection of emotion. Poverty, chastity, and obedience are extremely difficult. She reminded them that some would have more trouble than others, and that never any two would react in the same way. She cited the case of Christ's own disciples, who counted in their much smaller group one who doubted, one who denied thrice, and one who betrayed, and suggested that God might possibly have permitted those defections of the disciples to illustrate how difficult was the way to him. But there are always the graces if you will pray for them. Pray that you may all become St. John's, lovers of Christ. The Superior General paused. Then she began again and gave her exhortation in Flemish. For the farm girls, Gabrielle thought, and she knew how they must love the Reverend Mother for her robust accent in their native tongue. As she listened to the talk a second time, she studied the woman who, during her religious life, had served as missionary in India, as teacher in Poland, as supervisor in the psychiatric institutes of the order, including the Heartbreak Home for uneducable idiot children, which broke most nuns after a tour of duty there. She knew the Superior held degrees in philosophy, the humanities, and was a diplomaed nurse besides, and that her memory was said to be phenomenal. Every 6 years, when she visited the missions of the order, all the way from the Great Wall of China to the Himalayas, she could call every nun by name without prompting from the local Mother Superior. She's not one woman, Gabrielle thought, she's a multitude of women. The Superior General gave her talk in English, then paused for the third and final time. Her right hand, knife thin and long, appeared from beneath her scapular. She made the sign of the cross over them, a compact gesture without any energy-wasting sweep, gave them her benediction in Latin, and sat down. She remained seated while the postulants stood up on signal from the mistress and recited the Veni Creator. Then they bowed and left the hall to return to the chapel for Mass. Not until she was about to enter the chapel did it occur to Gabrielle that she had been too absorbed in the Gothic woman who is henceforth the ruler of her days to have noticed if Sister William had been present for the ceremony. And that is the end of chapter 2. And I've got ashes on my black pants. So how was that? I don't even know how long that took. About a half hour. 25 minutes. Not bad. I wanted to mention, I'm new to this, YouTube told me I am eligible for super chats, which are some kind of paid sticky chats that stay on the screen. I don't really know how that works. Oh, thank you. I'm curious about these super chats, and obviously in this kind of live stream I don't look up as often as you would if you were looking at the camera, but I do appreciate any support. However, those super chats work. I'm in the process of setting up a what's it called, what is it? Buy me a coffee? I was trying Patreon, but they don't do what I want them to do. So I'm going to set up I think it's called a buy me a coffee. But maybe, wait. I mean, yeah. I don't like the smoking either, but I want to practice. I don't do it at all during the week. So I want to practice the voice, and smoking as an Audrey thing, nah. I mean, at my age, I doubt it. Yeah, so I kind of want to practice both, and then I also figure it's probably a good idea to practice the, what's the word? Multitasking. I can't talk and multitask. Yes. Yeah, it's just for this. I mean, it's not, it wasn't like on my bucket list to learn to smoke. It's just for the Audrey thing. And I thought it might be a good thing to do it together because it's multitasking, and I think a regular smoker would know how to talk or read or do whatever while they're smoking and not focus on it. So I thought maybe like the reading would take my focus off the smoking and help me, just get used to that. But this is like the only time of the week I do it. So yeah, I kind of like this practice time. It's good. I'm glad I started this. We'll keep doing it for a while. Thank you. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have like a set time and where I kind of meet people and kind of practice it. It was like when I had piano lessons and I was paying the teacher, and I was a little scared of her, and I knew, if I hadn't practiced during the week, she'd kill me. So there was that set time a week where I had to perform. So this is kind of my, I don't know, my practice time where I have to show up for people and have to show up for myself and do this. Otherwise, you kind of think, oh, I'll do it later, do it tomorrow. So that's how that works. I need schedules. So this is nice. So 15 people in here, 16 little likes. Nice. Yeah, let's see, what else is up? Yes, the super like thing. Curious about how that works. If anyone wants to super like me. And I'll keep it up for I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing here, but I think I'll keep it up for like 24 hours. Hello, moth. And then I'm gonna put it in a private area, and I'm figuring out how to work that. Oops, I missed that one. Sorry. So it should be up for the next day or so. Yeah, and I'm almost done here because I'm done reading. Just thought I'd sit and chat and see who's here and say hello. And yeah, there's not a whole lot of news really to share. Oh, I hear bugs and bees. That's nice. I've been doing gardening. I've got a little bit of a garden going on. It's nice. Some flowers growing, some sage and lavender and cucumbers. It's nice. All right, anything else? Anything else anyone want to share before we go? Oh, well, thank you. I look forward to looking over the video and critiquing myself. I didn't look over too much of last week's video. I've been I've been trying to study for the driving test here and work on some other things. Thanks. I'm glad I'm making improvements. That's great. Every week I hope I improve. I'll feel a little down if one week you're like, no, it stank this week, it was worse. But it would happen. Thanks. Yeah, I'm not like making a huge effort to like stay in character the whole time. Somehow it feels a little weird to do that, but thank you. Thank you. I need to do more Audrey things, but this is my practice before I like do something that I'm going to leave up on my channel. I have something. Oh, okay, I will try to check. I'm really bad with the Facebook messages because they go in this other folder and I forget. Are you driving? Am I what? I'm near them. I'm near there. Not in there. I'm very close. For those who didn't know, Audrey actually visited this house at least once as a child during the war because a friend of her mother's owned it and lived here. Oh, then I like Super Chat. Let's hope someone does that. That'll be exciting. Yeah, so anything else? Yeah, so this is my practice before, in a couple weeks I think, after I've done this a couple times, and you all say I'm ready, then I have something I do want to read to put up on my channel as Audrey. And actually I'm working with someone, this young girl from England who likes to write poetry, and she's writing some poems about movies of Audrey's. And I'm not sure, wait, oh, maybe, I'll check. But she's writing some poems, and I'm going to read them as Audrey. So this is also practice for that, because I want to do a good job for her. A little collaboration. So I'll let you know when that's up. Well, you'll see when it's up. I'll put it on YouTube. Do I have any plan on trying real cigarette? Yes, I was hoping my boyfriend would be back this week and I could bum a cigarette from him, because I think he took them all with him. He is a smoker. But he's not back yet. So next week, hopefully I'll steal some cigarettes. For now, it's just my herbal smokes. So yeah. Yeah, let's see, next week, I still like the nun story, but maybe next week I'll read from something else. I don't know, should I read from something else or keep reading the nun story, or a little of both? Or what do you think? And you can always let me know later on Instagram or something like that too. If you have something that you think would be fun to read as Audrey, please, yeah, send me a message, because, yeah. Stream answering questions as Audrey. What if I don't know the answer? Could try. Could try. But I'm afraid I wouldn't know the answer. It's actually not my first. Let's see. I tried a cigarette once a long time ago in Los Angeles at a party. And I also kind of had a couple cigarettes in Paris. Like, they were just left somewhere, so I took them and I'm like, I'm going to try these. And I went home and smoked them. Oops, I missed that one. I'll have to look for that too. I really wish they would just like come up on the side. I mean, stay there for me. I wonder if I can fix that. Yeah, did I have another cigarette at some point? I don't know. I actually tried my boyfriend's vape thing. That, oh my, I couldn't even inhale. I'm like, oh, I don't know what that vape is, but that was nasty. So I have vaped marijuana before, and that was fine. I got really high, but this tobacco one, oh my gosh, no. But as for cigarettes, I have had a handful in the past, so not addicted yet. All right, I think I have no idea what time it is, but I should probably head on inside and see what's going on for dinner. And thank you for joining me. I'm so happy people show up. It's great, and I look forward to next week. And if you have any suggestions or anything you want to say, just reach out. No, I don't think I will. As I said, at my age, I don't think I'm an addictive person. Chocolate maybe, but I don't think these. Oh no, I don't know. Is that German or Dutch? Because I still don't know much Dutch. It's terrible. Got to work on that too. I should do that. Okay, that's something I should do as well. Find something in French and something in Dutch, something small that I can read on this channel. We talked about that last week. I will do that. Maybe not for next week, but I will start looking for something and we'll try. All right. Oh, I actually have this interview of Audrey she did in Dutch, and I'm trying to kind of work that out, but it's a little difficult, and I don't know if I can really read that yet. So, okay. For real now, I'm gonna go. And I'll see you next week, I think. I think I'll do it at the same time next week. If anything changes, you'll know. Is that a German text? Are you saying I should read in German? I don't know any German. I'm going to stick with French and Dutch. But, thanks. All right. Well, I will see you next week. And have a good rest of the weekend and a good next week. And I don't know how to end things. Okay. So, bye. Let's see. Awkwardly, she reaches to... No, that's not how I do it. How do you... Okay, there. Bye.